Welcome back to Becking News, where we break down the breaking news utilizing facts because you can't run from the truth. Can somebody explain to me when it is we started defending terrorists? Because I always believe that one of the few things we could do as a people, one of the few things we could agree on, no matter what political spectrum you fell under, what's part of the spectrum, the people that attack Americans were the bad guys. These aren't the people that we defend or promote. And in case you're confused on the situation that's currently going on, obviously I'm talking about Iran and General Soleimani, who President Trump commissioned the drone strikes to take out and successfully killed. The issue I have is look at the way the media is portraying this. Nobody is saying that he was a great guy or that he wasn't a terrorist, because it's well known. He absolutely was a terrorist with the intent to kill Americans, and he had done it in the past. We'll break down his resume a little bit further into this video. But everybody acknowledges that. The only other thing they're saying is that he was a revered general. He was loved by his people. To that, I say, yeah, he absolutely was. He was supported by some of his people. That isn't incorrect. However, we could take a look at some other people that were revered by their people, great generals. A few that come to mind, Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Mao, Mussolini, Vladimir Putin, all people that supported by their people, 100%, or at least the majority crowd that you see on the news every day supported them. You could call them revered generals. However, they all killed thousands or millions, depending on who we're talking about, and weren't really the best people as far as history looks back on them, right? We don't consider them role models or great people now. I would contend that Soleimani's probably going to fall under that umbrella. Give it a couple of months, years, maybe a couple of decades even. We'll look back and go, man, thank God he isn't here anymore. So yeah, when did we start defending people like that? Now, to my understanding and the people I talked to, there's still a little bit of confusion on what his resume actually looked like. So let's go over a couple of things. First off, Soleimani was the leader of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, a group that was put on the terror watch list, not by the Trump administration. It was done back in 2014 by the previous administration, or the Obama administration. So even back then, we looked at him and said, yeah, he's not the greatest guy. He's on the terror watch list. He is a terrorist. We understand what he and his people are doing. We need to prevent what's going on and stop him, right? And nobody had an objection to that. Right, left, everybody agreed. So I want to make it very clear that we've known what this man has been up to and what he's capable of for a very long time. But specifically what he's done, he's responsible for the deaths of over 600 Americans, or 17% of all American deaths in the Middle East. That's just the American numbers. He was responsible for thousands of Middle Eastern people being killed, whether it be discriminately or indiscriminately, in the Middle East for the last 20 years. I can't believe that with how much we advocate for justice for all, how we need to protect people that can't protect themselves, that the left isn't jumping all over this saying, look, we finally took out somebody that has been torturing and killing people in the Middle East, right, for the longest time. But then again, it's Trump that's currently in office who's leading the charge right now. So we can't do that because that would give him more credit. And as we know right now, the left has zero political capital to give up on anything that would promote Trump in the slightest. So moving down the list, we know that Soleimani was the second in command. He was pretty much a favorite to take over should the current leader in the Middle East, right, the Ayatollah, have died. He was basically going to take his place. We also know that he had launched wars and been encouraging conflict in Libya, Syria, Lebanon for the longest time. He's been incentivizing all of it. He's received billions of dollars from the U.S., and how does he repay us? He turns around and uses the weapons and funding directly on us, which we've known these people do for the longest time. The other part that blows my mind with this whole situation is the similarity to the Osama bin Laden incident. When it went down, one of the few things in the Obama administration that the right and left pretty much universally agreed on was this was a good thing. We took down a terrorist that we all knew needed to be stopped. He was responsible for the 9/11 attacks. Nobody had issues. Even if you didn't like Obama at the time, a lot of people, most of the people on the right, were willing to say, you know what, I don't like the guy, but this was a good one. You know what I mean? Give him this one, whether he's directly responsible for it or not. This is a good thing that happened. He took him down. We needed this to happen. That's not the case when it goes the other way. This isn't surprising to me because when you look at the media and the way the left and right interact with each other, it typically goes this way. The quote-unquote apologists, the people that are more sympathetic, that are willing to understand each other, as the left deem themselves, are always the least understanding people in the conversation. They're okay so long as you agree with them, but if you don't, you better get the hell out of Dodge, because they're coming after you. And that's exactly what happened here. Trump and his administration were able to successfully take out one of the biggest, arguably the biggest terrorist on the face of the planet in Soleimani. And he is somehow deemed a war criminal. People are threatening him for assassinating other countries' political leaders. When have we ever encouraged that? And their big thing right now is not saying that he didn't take out a terrorist, but that he assassinated another nation's political leader. And they don't understand, since when has that been okay? And since when has he been able to do that without congressional approval? Well, let's look back just a couple of years to the Obama administration, right? Starting off, Obama had launched over 2,800 drone strikes, killing thousands of people, arguably people that needed to die. People that were in a situation where they were harming Americans, Middle Eastern people, whoever it was, they were a threat to everybody. But he did this without congressional approval. How is this possible, and why weren't Republicans, rightists, whatever you want to call them, jumping all over this? Well, they had passed what's called the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, which directly allows for the executive branch of government to take action versus people like Soleimani, bin Laden, whoever it may be in the Middle East or around the globe, without congressional approval, because we understand when they're a direct threat, sometimes you have to act and can't allow them to run rampant and go do whatever the hell they want while you seek congressional approval, because the political gridlock prevents things from happening for a very, very long time. And when it comes to taking out a leader like this, you can't just let it happen. The other big issue people have is, why didn't we know about this? Why is it that this happened out of nowhere and that there was no political discussion around it? That's kind of the point, though, right? One of the big issues the Obama administration had was they like to publicly announce all of their plans in the Middle East, specifically in the Middle East. Well, when you let the bad guys know what you're going to be doing, it gives the bad guys time to act on it. I, for one, am very proud of Trump for not publicly releasing all of his information and plans when going to take down somebody like Soleimani, because I didn't know, which means they didn't know, which means it was successful the first time, right? Again, I understand that under the Obama administration, we were able to take down bin Laden. However, I would say it took a lot longer than it needed to, because they knew every step of what we were going to do, because for the longest time, we just allowed them to know our plans in the first place, which is already problematic. I don't think that's difficult to see. I like to make it clear, I'm no expert in geopolitics in the Middle East, right? I don't think a lot of people that speak on this issue are. Some are, obviously, and they're more credible than even, let's say, I am. But it's important to note that he killed thousands of people. Specifically, a vast majority of them are Middle Eastern, and they celebrate this. Now, the people you see on the media, on the news, at his funeral, obviously he has supporters. Any dictator does have supporters that are going to be there to rally behind him when he died. The big thing is the counterattack that we saw when they launched missiles at an Iraqi U.S. base, right, which they claimed killed 30 Americans. Side note, when the Americans went in and looked at the damage and saw everything, they reported that no Americans were hurt. Take a guess which side the leftist media chooses to promote and trust on this issue, but that's neither here nor there, right? No Americans were hurt. Look back to other analysts. As soon as this attack went down, though, people knew this was going to happen. The Ben Shapiros, the Glenn Becks of the world looked and said, yeah, this is what happens. When you have bad guys in power and slightly less bad guys looking to take over power, this is going to happen. They try to keep a stronghold. So yes, we took out Soleimani. Their immediate response was to counterattack. They counterattacked, didn't hurt anybody, and now there's already a retractory statement saying, we apologize, we're not going to go any further. Why? Because they need to have an active power in order to seem like they can still control the region without completely being overthrown with the loss of leadership. However, when you want to talk about bad people in office, Soleimani was the worst of them, and now we're already seeing the current administration in Iran backing down and losing power. Another fun little side note on all of this, which I find extremely interesting, is how we're already off the Ukraine issue, right? We were on impeachment. It was so urgent. It was so important to talk about all of this, but that's gone now, right? Because just like we talked about last week, the whole impeachment issue is neither here nor there. It's a complete hoax, right? That's why Pelosi's holding onto the articles and will continue to hold onto the articles, because they don't actually have any backing. The Senate will shoot it down. That's not going to be an issue. So we're off that. We're off of Ukraine now because we have a new scandal, right? Same swamp, new scandal. This time it's going to be Iran and how the president doesn't have the authority to do what he did. He assassinated a political leader of another nation. It's all BS. None of it's true. And we'll see that over time. But just notice how quickly we shift targets. As soon as the left has a new platform to attack the president on, they're going to do it. I saw a meme the other day that made me laugh, and it's so true. It was a picture of a guy looking at a piece of paper, really studying it, and it just said, trying to find the part of the Constitution where disliking a president is grounds for impeachment. And that's all the left is doing. It's the perfect depiction of what's currently going on. Thank you guys so much for listening. This was a short video just to get something out there for you. As always, I encourage you to continue the conversation with your peers and your family in order to continue the sharing of civil discourse, in order to continue the sharing of ideas, so that one day maybe we can all agree on how to treat these issues. And again, we always want to unite the United States the best we can in order to make the best actions to continue the legacy of this great country. But remember, as always, you can't run from the truth.